Okay, I think I have to oil this thing. And sometimes you have to oil friendships. You know, the people who you really value and who give you more than anyone else are the people you have to know how to feed. Now, I just handed out a batch of self-made chickpeas that I baked in the oven. I think I've already shown how to do this. You soak them in water for 12 hours, dry chickpeas. You know, you get these from Turkish shops. You can buy an entire kilo for maybe €6, you know? And you can make, I mean, you have to think about this. These are dry chickpeas. So if you soak them, they almost triple in size. And you can soak them for, let's say, 1 day in, I take filtered water. And that to me is in comparison to what comes out of the pipes directly in the usual way. In comparison, it's like fresh spring water. And you can't believe the amount of training I have to go through in order to be able to walk here in bare feet, in such an outfit, wearing my beard, emanating my truth, and having a camera in the city at full range. Now, I am happy that I am not in Amsterdam, because the attention I would receive in such a giant city would be insane. And that's the next challenge, I believe. I think I'm here in this city at the moment for a reason, because I'm training for something. I think I want to see how it would be to do this in, let's say, the Vondelpark in Amsterdam. And that's what I like about Amsterdam. It's a giant city, but you've also got giant parks where you can lose yourself in. And this is the reason why Amsterdam is such an awesome place. Because every couple of, I don't know, streets, there's a park. I mean, there's like 16 to 70 parks. You know, that's just from the top of my head. In Amsterdam, and it's surrounded by the ocean, which means it has a very good vibe. And that means to me, you know, that it's an example for all kinds of other cities. And that's basically, ich muss immer noch einen draufsetzen.
Hi.
Weißt du? Alle wollen auffallen.
Alle wollen auffallen?
Ja. Weißt du, du willst auch auffallen.
Ja, klar.
Man muss immer noch einen draufsetzen.
Klar.
Ja, Mann.
Hau rein.
Cheers, Alter. You know, it's super weird if you start feeling comfortable, and that's also what I, in a way, like about the camera, because it's actually, to me, an anchor point. It gives me security because everybody wants to behave. Everybody wants to be nice and cool when a camera is running, right? I mean, you don't scratch your crotch when you're on camera for YouTube, you just make sure you don't do that. And if you do, you just fail to realize the possibility the camera is giving you, which is being the constant observer. So if let's say I'm in my room and I'm filming myself, you know, I can't just pull down my pants and start to play with my ding-a-ling, right? You know, what we would generally consider as masturbation. I mean, you don't just do that, because then you would be doing porn and then you can't be on YouTube, which is the challenge that everybody is facing, that how much of your life and yourself and your ideas and the thoughts that you carry do you actually want to funnel into the content that you make. So how much of my private self, who am I as a person or a human, can I give to the people that would see me from a distance? Now, I'm at the same time vulnerable, but I feel more safe because who would attack me if I walk around with a camera? It actually commands respect. If you can walk like this with a straight face and talk openly about whatever you want to talk about in the public. And people actually, you know, they like stretch their senses to just pick up a little bit of what you're saying. I mean, what is this guy doing? What's his mission? You know, what the fuck? I mean, this is a small kind of city, you know, you would say, but it's a connection point. And because it's the heart of the industry, what I'm doing is the best commercial you could ever run for, you know, basically yourself. So if you're a content creator, you have to really live what you're preaching. And if you preach, you know, spirituality, because as soon as you open your mouth and you talk and people listen, it's preaching, you know? And you try to wiggle out of it, like Alan Watts said, well, but I'm not preaching. And what reverberated, you know, when he said that was like, you're just avoiding the truth, my friend. I mean, you can push it around with words, but it's still the truth, right? I mean, as much as you want it, if you think I'm an asshole, you're probably an asshole too. Because everything we think others, you know, if something riles me up in someone else, it's just me. And so if I can walk here and hold the camera and just be relaxed about it, I mean, other people start to think, if he can flash around such an you know, I never thought about these things until I actually open up and talk about it enough. And sure, I just smoked a bit of a joint I still had. And then I left the apartment. I was actually afraid to do it. But then you do it and you realize, what was I actually afraid about? Was it just afraid to learn something new? Afraid to, you know, I don't know what, accept the challenge? Because it's not like I was planning to jump from a, you know, skyscraper with a parachute. Or, you know, like, let's say Tom Cruise, you know, who has to jump from a cliff on a bike and he does it like 16 times to get the shot right and he breaks his ankle. I mean, I can just be at home and prepare myself to go into nature or just into life. So I'm at home in my comfort zone, right? I'm feeling snug and I'm feeling nice and I'm drinking tea and I can have I can have all the food that I want and it's amazing, yeah? But I may realize that if I've been doing this for years and years, I'll become lazy, I'll become fat. And all that comfort that I surrounded myself to feel good actually suddenly becomes poison and a drag. Because it's always the dosage. So what I learned is that I need a certain amount of discomfort in my life to keep things interesting. And I realized that nobody's gonna give that to me because everybody's so busy being comfortable. And so I was starting to shake up things a little because my life was so boring, nothing ever happened. You know, everybody was living in a rut. And because there were people like family and, you know, maybe people that surrounded me that were starting to piss me off because they were restricting me in my freedom, you know, I started to really push things around a little because I realized, what's about this piece? You know, I was playing chess. You know, I was cleaning up the chessboard because, you know, whatever the genius mind is, what I think it does is it gives you the ability to realize which pieces in your life are actually holding you back, and you suddenly start poking for some kind of revelation which you try to understand by thinking about it. You know, so you sit and you think. But if you're stuck at sitting and thinking, you stop, you know, living and experiencing. So you have to find the balance between the inactive and the active. You know, if I'm at home and I am physically inactive, what happens is my mind takes over, and so it never gets boring. If I feel like I'm stuck in a feeling, because that's how I try to orient myself, how do I feel, and what could change my state of mind. The perception of what's happening is being contradicted by my inner feeling. You know, something is disturbing my peace and I cannot stand it. You know, this is the mentality I work myself through life and through intense experience. It's like, wait a second, something's bugging me. You know, I feel like I injured my ankle and there's pain. And I'm seeing myself as a character like Trungpa Rinpoche, who, you know, came from somewhere India or Thailand, I have no idea, maybe Tibet. And he was apparently trained as some kind of spiritual renunciate, you know, Dalai Lama kind of figure. And he was never introduced to this kind of society where you just have everything all the time and where you have to make choices about what to eat, what to choose. You're basically being hammered with choice. And as the tsunami of choice, you know, is before you and you stand there in your underwear, you know, praying to heaven, you know, you start to get kind of numb. Because the idea of heaven is, of course, you know, being taken away from you by just keeping you trapped in a constant hell where you're like ding, 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 ding. You know, you're like the ball in this flipper game and you're just being, you know, and you're afraid to drop. But the thing is, if you drop through the hole, you're basically free, right? You're not being shaken around anymore. You can finally settle. And that's where the comfort zone comes in. Because if you're constantly outside running around, you just keep being the ping pong ball. And that means a lot of your energy is just being wasted by bumping from encounter to encounter to encounters, like ding, 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 and then heart attack, right? It's like work, you know, even sleeping becomes some kind of drag, you know, you actually hate sleeping, but what else should you do with your life? And then you lie awake at night in bed and you're like, I fucking hate my life, it's so boring, you know, only you're convinced you really hate it, right? I mean, it's just a perspective. It's, you're piling up energy because you have energy, but you don't know what to do with it. And then you drink coffee, which really riles you up because you feel so dead or heavy or whatever, you know. Coffee is the only thing that keeps me going. And then you drink coffee and another, and you go from one sitting position to the next sitting position. And that's basically life, right? Everybody just sits around, you go from one seat to the next. You sit in a car, you sit on a couch, you sit on a chair, yeah? And every time you get up, you basically crawl back to the next sitting position. Well, I just simply started to walk everywhere again. I simply refused cars. You know, I could have worked, you know, I could have done other jobs so I could buy a car. But I realized, you know, never go straight to the park. I think that's you know, that's what I learned. If you just keep dragging yourself to one place and you say, you know, I have to go there. It's like you go to work, right? Every morning you go to work. You know, you wait until it's the right time to leave because the watch tells you so. And then you leave. and then you go somewhere else, and then you realize, you know, now I'm at work, and then you work, and then you go straight back home. You know, it's like there are no transitions between these fixed points that you have. You know, what you have to learn is to establish flexible routes. So you say, I'm gonna do something in between, you know, being at home and work. So either I have to stretch out the time before or after. It's probably better to stretch out the time before and after. And that's a very valid point. The point before and after work, right? You have to have some time for yourself outside. And in that, it doesn't mean nature specifically, because I can have nature in a city, you know. I just happen to live somewhere where a 1 hour detour or half an hour detour gets me into nature, you know, from my apartment into society, back into nature, you know, and then in nature, you know, I meet people then in a park. You know, I just happen to have access to that. But you can see nature and beauty anywhere. I loved Amsterdam. We have to start seeing cities as jungles. We have to start seeing cities as jungles. It's an important thing that we start accepting the environment that we are finding ourselves in. Because if we people who love nature and think we understand oneness or whatever, and we just want peace and, you know, freedom, we feel drawn to cities. All of us. I feel drawn to the city, you know, because that's where the people are and that's where we want to be. You know, we just feel drawn into this. But I started to live really on the inside. Or I wanted to, you know, I was never really the inside Amsterdam kind of kid. I actually always stayed somewhere in nature. I studied in the Barbarian forest. I mean, now it's coming all together. You know, if I don't talk about these things like this, I mean, I'm not just saying, it's not enough for me sometimes to just walk around. I really want to record this. Just talking to myself with nobody listening, I mean, I do this. And I sometimes practice things, but it's mostly then in German. And so, yeah, you know, you still have to work with these feelings of discomfort when you hold this entire station, because, I mean, I can record everything that's happening around me. But it's also a challenge, because you're certainly there. So you need to work on your stance, right? Yeah, I was just talking to that guy and he was wearing a collar like a dog, you know? It's like, and I said to him, I said in German, I can just switch instantly without problem. And it's never even a question if I should continue in German, you know, I've really worked with that. My content is in English. I assume I could give German interviews just to, you know, show how well I can talk. But, you know, that's basically it. I mean, I can talk really well. And I've trained it. I mean, I've spoken for hours, but I get little to none, like, flow experience in German. So sometimes when I walk alone at home, towards home, or towards comfort, wow, this is so nice, like the grass. I still feel my left ankle, but I worked with that fear. I don't know, I just keep hearing these voices that give me really positive things. I mean, you have to understand, the way I used to think was like very negative, and that really changed. You know, it's like the voice suddenly starts to say things like, you're doing really well. Or you have a thought of failure, and then the thought says, never allow thoughts like this to ruin your mood. right? It's like, it's hard to translate it because these thoughts come more as a feeling, like this warm bosom, like a pigeon. Like, think of like how a chick must feel, you know, when it's being raised by a mother, like a chicken, you know, like all these feathers, and she sits on you and it's like it's so cute, right? I mean, this is the really cute part of nature. I mean, even baby crocodiles are cute, but I mean, they're like vicious. I mean, they eat each other. I mean, they're like super tough. I mean, I have lived in the presence of crocodiles for, let's say, 12 months. You know, I had times where I was in the city, where I had to go to uni in Bloemfontein. Bloemfontein, keine Ahnung. And I got a bit of a city life, but I mostly stayed in nature. So I was in the Kruger Park, I traveled in the Blythe River Canyon, super nice areas, you know. I don't know, as long as tourism exists, you know, if you want to, be a tourist, but just be nice about it. You know, you don't go to a country and then you demand the food that you are being fed at home just because you leave your money there. No. This is what I like about Amsterdam. They manage to, at least to a certain degree, maintain the spirit of Amsterdam, because the stable population is stable because of the nature that surrounds them, and because also they know how to smoke weed. And they like to relax. You know, in Amsterdam, you don't get drunk, wasted on alcohol. You know, I think it's very well behaved. You know, for some reason, there's no need to smash yourself, because if you smoke weed, you know, you're not gonna drink that much. You drink one beer. You don't keep drinking, right? I don't know, they're just really balanced. And maybe it's that we feel disconnected. You know, it could be that as Germans, people actually feel disconnected from the ocean because of their concept of barriers, where we say, you know, this is Germany and this is the Netherlands, but both of them are just concepts in our minds. And it could actually be that we feel like there's a cut, you know, oh, the ocean is so far away, you know, it's like it's in the Netherlands but not in Germany. Why don't you just see it as, you know, just part of the world or Earth or whatever? You know, I don't really acknowledge boundaries anymore at all. I mean, I realize that other people, for them, they're really real. So if I wanted to travel, I'd probably need, you know, I would probably need, I don't know, a passport. But then you think, you know, if I travel with faith, you know, I don't know, did Gandhi have a passport? I think he burned it. I don't think he walked around with a passport, but that's an interesting concept that one could certainly try. How far could I come? And, you know, could I come back? You know, is this like the road to damnation? You know, and they just, you know, if I try this, are they just gonna put me into prison? You know, it's like, of course, you could say, no, well, it's very dangerous to talk about this. Well, why? If somebody doesn't want to be a part of society, if somebody doesn't want to do the jobs that other people are doing, such as I basically discovered my own potential because nobody could tell me what it was. Everybody wanted me for something, but they just wanted me to be their dog. And I said, but I want to do what I want to do. And I want to make sure I'm gonna keep doing this. And this is why, you know, this is the only thing I can devote myself to without compromising my honesty. Because I basically say, you know, I cannot work for other men because other men have different ideas than me. You know, I'm my own man. You know, I give what I have, and I make sure that what I have to give, you know, is going to rest in the right place. But if I spend time with you and you're a friend, I also have to trust that if I spend time with you because you're going to contribute to my life and I'm going to contribute to your life. And so I sometimes think if I invest myself into a friendship, I also want to know that this is going to go into the right direction. So not only with women, but also with men did I start to establish very firm boundaries where I say, when you're just going to be an asshole, you know, I'm at least going to fight against it because I'm just standing where I am, you know, that's the thing. Now I had to rethink. I just had to rethink. Wow. I mean, talking about, you know, when I'm at home in my apartment, I don't see that I'm going to eat these things. But once I'm there, you know, I eat these things. Sometimes I just go through secret messages in my mind because I deal with people who are prone to anger every day, and that includes me. And what I realize is that most people, including myself, are afraid to lose control. What I found is I can push people very far because I don't lose control, because I'm not trying to make you hurt me and I'm not gonna hurt you. So because I'm only threatening you on a, I don't know, presential level, like my presence is very firm. And when you sit there and you believe that certain ideas are completely true and fixed, like what Rupert Sheldrake came up with, how do you know where your thoughts are being stored? No, your memories are being stored in. Everybody, this is underlying assumption, right? That the speed of light is, I think, what is it, 9 point, or the 3 point, whatever, chuck, like a fixed kind of number. And they use this for calculations, which gives you an idea about how science operates. Science is trying to simplify life by claiming that they understand it. So they just go around and they measure something with something, like they reflect the laser against a mirror, and then the mirror comes back, the light is being reflected, and then you can measure, you just cut it in half, and that's then the speed light takes from one point to the next. You know, this is how they, I think, you measure distances with a laser. You know, you point it on something, it's being redirected. But there's of course always a distortion of the truth, because not all the particles that you shot out are gonna come back. So it's like, it's actually going like this. Well, there's still the center. So it makes no sense to measure something like this and then you measure it, let's say 5 million times, and then you add all of these things together, and then you take the medium thing, like, you know, like the average, and then you've got the average speed of light, and then you use that speed of light for all further calculations. And then you just say, you know, we just consider it as a constant because it's too complicated to take light as something that's variable. Because everything I would add to the equation, you know, wouldn't be the real thing anyway. You know, I could, you know, calculate with different factors, of course. Now I have a constant, but now I have twilight, you know. with the light slower or something, right? Something's happening at twilight, you know, who knows? Maybe Terry Pratchett was right. And light is like flowing. I actually liked the guy, but when I heard him talk, I realized he has a lisp. And it really annoyed me, but I think I have to distance myself from these ideas, because maybe he just didn't talk a lot. Or maybe he fancied Spanish women or something. You know, I think it's just, I'm also a talker. You know, my writing is more like my talking. I'm basically recording with my fingers what my thoughts are. And that's something that is, for me, a little bit difficult at times. Why am I saying that? Because when I'm talking, I can take this camera and just go for walks. You know, I can just go for walks. And as long as the weather is nice, I have no excuse not to do that. So, you know, I'm kind of waiting all the time for, you know, rain pouring down and, you know, blistering cold, you know, like real discomfort, so that I would say, I think I'm just gonna stay inside for a few days. But it's just not happening. I mean, it seems like it's about to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. And now I realize again, now I'm in the forest, I don't have to speak so loud anymore. But just look at the time it took me to realize the way I was behaving. So I'm just allowing myself to be the way I want to be at the moment. Sometimes I talk loud because I just can't hear myself, because of all the noise and the clutter that, you know, flood over me as soon as I leave the apartment. It's just like, you know, a complete terror in comparison to, let's say, being inside and then being in the forest or being in the sauna. You know, everything's so different. And that's why, you know, if I would just rush from home to the sauna, you know, to the back home, you know, it's better to circle around a little. You know, be like water, flow, right? You want to flow. But where should you flow to? Because now you're like, boom, boom, boom. You know, it's like you're always on edge. You know, it's like ding, ding, ding. So, okay, how do you learn that? First of all, you know, take a bit of your drive away. I mean, less coffee, more activity. That's it. And then, of course, come in questions about diet, sugar. But if you're like most people drinking a lot of coffee, that's probably one reason why you're so riled up. You know, all these energy drinks, all that kind of stuff, they just make you go crazy, right? You should rather start to move. You know, if you drink a coffee, then you do it to do an activity and you just want a good start, right? That's how I do it. You just want a good start, and so you know, punish yourself. You know, you drink a coffee to get yourself to go hiking. Most people just drink a coffee. I mean, some people, they just sit at home and then they drink a coffee and they say it relaxes me. It's stupid. We don't need more relaxation. That's just what I think. Okay, maybe you do. But I always think movement is much better, because I see the people that give in to being relaxed. And what happens to them is, you know, they get lazy and then they start having all kind of ailments. You know, they get bad eyes, they get bad backs, they get, you know, troubles with their hips and knees. And then they get surgery, and then they get sicker and weaker and more broken, because every time a doctor cuts into you, what you have to understand is that he's not just cutting flesh. I mean, he's cutting into the substance of yourself. And you don't know what he's cutting around there. He doesn't know what he's looking for. I mean, I'm just saying, that's what you have to consider if you want to see life, you know, as something living, spiritual and energetic. So if I acknowledge that I have an energy body, I will try to reduce the amount of, you know, cutting. Because, so you learn to be gentle with yourself is what I'm trying to say. You know, you make sure that, you know, you strengthen your body through rigorous training, such as, you know, going barefoot hiking, or trying to just, I don't know, barefoot is not for everyone. Yeah, I've seen people, you know, most people never try it. It seems to them like a far stretch, but it's actually the smartest thing you can do. And if you don't want to do it in a city, which I get because it's very hard to remember that no glass will ever hurt you, you know, that's a very hard one. Right? I mean, you can attract stepping into glass just by focusing on it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen, it's gonna ruin your entire experience. You have to keep thinking positive. You have to keep thinking positive, because if your mind slips, you're gonna break something. So your mind has to be always in the movement, which is why jumping around on meadows and catching frisbees and paying attention to who you're playing with is the safest exercise to injure yourself. And I don't know, you just have to make sure that you stay in the teaching position. If you want to be a teacher, you have to keep teaching. Why do I say that? Because I started being a teacher because I was specifically trained for that. You know, I was being sorted out my entire life already as something, you know, that probably was in some way special. My arts teacher always settled me out to sit at her desk and draw. And only now do I realize what the relevance was to my life. She realized I could be a painter, but she couldn't get me to paint because I just wanted to play with my friends. And I only started to paint when I was full enough with toxicity that I finally had enough energy to, you know, just start going. And I never realized actually that I did it, you know, and then I speak about it and then I forget that I realized it until I remember it again at a later stage. So I don't cling to anything, which is why, you know, I've always been like that. And people try to tell me I was wrong, but I was never really stuck in my life. You know, if I had a phase, I started to realize it, I started to change it. You know, I started to realize when I was with my first girlfriend and I was at her parents' place and her mother, well, they were actually a divorced couple, so there was a new husband and a new daughter. You know, it's actually not my background, but I had no idea what I was looking for, right? Sometimes there's something about marrying in your own class, you know, just of how you were brought up. You know, so for me, a woman from the middle class is the likeliest, and with a stable home is the likeliest fit, because I understand where she's coming from, right? I cannot understand all these other women, the way they behave. Also sometimes how ungrateful they are, right? I don't get it, you know? And that's why middle class families are actually quite important for a society, because they keep the mood up. They're the ones that, you know, work hard and, you know, manage to like rise above. You know, that's just very important to remember, you know, because all the people that are down below or that feel down below, and you know, these places exist, we all know it. You know, even the rich, they all get supported by the middle class families. And we often, you know, because we're kind of in the middle, you know, people try to make us look either big or small. But we're just who we are, and we just do what we do. And, you know, sometimes a child can rise from such circumstances and create a life for himself that, you know, that you start giving back. Because middle class knows how much work it takes to have money, and usually rich people, they just keep it to themselves and then they just keep handing it over to their children. And I think that's also what a lot of middle class families do. You know, what middle class should do is focus on supporting, I don't know, the people that need help, because you know how to earn money and you earn money. But what are you gonna do with it? Just donate? Or just, you know, yeah, I'm just gonna retire and I'm gonna lay low, and when I'm dead my children are gonna get the money and then everybody... No! This is thinking. You were being manipulated, my friend. Money needs to flow. Because if you hold on to it, it's just gonna go back to the state. And then the state, you know, they don't manage anymore.